All right. Settle down, folks. Before we dive headfirst into the utter chaos that is Family Guy Season 22, Episode 4, can we just take a moment to acknowledge the sheer audacity of the opening song? I mean, lucky there's a Family Guy? It's like the showrunners looked at everything that makes the show controversial, offensive, and downright weird and said, yeah, but he's lucky. It's a masterpiece of self-awareness, or perhaps just delusion. I'm leaning towards delusion. And you know who's really good at delusion? Our esteemed director for this episode. The man, the myth, the legend who's been steering the ship of insanity for years. Joe Rogan? Wait, no, that's not right. It's Steve Loader. Yes, Steve Loader, who's got a resume longer than Peter's list of bad decisions. He's worked on everything from The X-Files to Kim Possible. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it does make you wonder if sometimes during a particularly wild Family Guy script read, he just mutters to himself, what would Ron Stoppable do with a jetpack? It's this kind of career whiplash that makes you wonder about the minds behind this show. They can go from saving the world with a musical montage to whatever it is we're about to watch. And speaking of whatever we're about to watch, get ready, because this episode is going to take you on a ride that's more bumpy than a commercial flight with a crying baby and a broken-down lavatory. We've got legal battles, questionable life choices, and a whole lot of old people getting way too excited. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll be asking yourself if we're watching a cartoon or a fever dream. And you know, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the absurdity, do us a solid and hit that subscribe button. It's like the free trial of insanity, and you definitely want to keep that going. So, Family Guy Season 22, Episode 4. The official title might be something bland, but let's be honest, it's really about Peter's quest to become a jetpack lawyer and Lois's desperate attempt to have a normal vacation. The episode kicks off with the classic Family Guy opening. You know, the one that's been around longer than some of the jokes. It's trying to tell us that things used to be better, more wholesome, and then bam, here comes Peter, the lucky guy who can do all the things that make us laugh and cry. And cry we might with the choices Peter makes. Lois is clearly done with their last vacation, which involved her driving to Toronto to confront a sex worker Peter was FaceTiming.
That's not a vacation, folks. That's a relationship crisis masquerading as a road trip. And Peter, bless his heart, is still a fan of Harold Goldfarb, jetpack lawyer. This character, who exists purely to be a ridiculous aspiration for Peter, is back. And of course, Peter wants to be him. He wants the jetpack, he wants the legal briefs, he wants to appeal to a higher court because who needs actual laws when you have thrust? And then we get to the passport office scene. It's a classic setup. Bureaucracy meets absurdity. This poor soul trying to renew their passport is told they're 7'6", 180 pounds, and have colorectal cancer. I mean, talk about a way to ruin your day. And then the sudden gasp about Seal and Heidi Klum breaking up and Whitney Houston dying. It's a weird trip down memory lane, highlighting how dated the magazines are, which is a nice little meta joke about how long this show has been on. But the real kicker is Lois's reaction to the Whitney Houston news. She's terrified that she'll drown in the bathtub, leading to the episode's central and frankly disturbing premise, Stewie's phobia of showers. It's so bizarre, this idea that a bath is a death trap and the only solution is a shower. And Stewie's traumatic flashback to his first shower is intense. It's depicted with this incredibly dramatic flute music, the stripping down, the overwhelming water, Peter actually getting in the shower with him. It's a level of weirdness that only Family Guy can achieve. It's so over the top, it's almost funny, but then you remember it's Stewie, and it's just unsettling. But hey, at least he's going to have a baby shower. Because what else would a baby do in their life, right? Plan their own gender reveal party with a side of existential dread. The whole throuple joke about cocaine is classic Family Guy, pushing boundaries and then immediately regretting it with a disclaimer. It's like they're always daring us to be offended. And then Peter, inspired by Jetpack Lawyer, decides he's going to become a sky attorney. Lois is obviously skeptical, which is understandable because wearing a jetpack does not a lawyer make. But Peter's logic is pure Peter. He saw something, he wants to do it. That's his thing. And if you're going to tape leaf blowers to your back, why wouldn't you? The visuals of him flying, or more accurately plummeting through the sky with the LA Law theme playing is just chef's kiss. It's the perfect blend of ambition and disaster.
And the immediate crash into the house, the shattering glass, the unexpected appearance of a Chinese balloon, which turns out to be a Japanese person. Oh, the casual racism disguised as a misunderstanding. Classic. And then Peter's admission that he spent all their vacation money on the jetpack. Because of course he did. And Lois's reaction, the lady brain comment, it all just adds to the predictable chaos. Joe, bless his heart, offers up his mom's condo in Florida as a consolation prize. It's a sweet gesture, but then we get the reveal that Joe's mom winters in a coffin. So, Florida's probably an improvement. The real twist, though, is the destination. Not a condo, but a retirement community. Peter, in his infinite wisdom, forgot to mention this crucial detail, and Lois's reaction to being in a place that smells like mothballs and regret is priceless. It's a retirement community, folks, complete with canasta, pickleball, and toilet seats so soft you're afraid of heights. The humor here comes from the clash of Peter's childish desire for adventure and Lois's mature, but rightfully annoyed, expectation of a vacation. They're stuck there for a week, so they might as well try to enjoy it, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to be surrounded by people who are essentially waiting for the next episode of Matlock to air? The episode really starts to explore the theme of aging and the different ways people cope with it, or don't. You've got the older folks finding joy in the simple things, like talking about Morgan Freeman's left-handedness, or the sheer excitement of watching someone bite an apple with their own teeth. It's a stark contrast to Peter's restless need for action. And then there's Stewie, who's still convinced he needs to take a shower, and Brian, who is absolutely terrified of water. Brian's flashback to his first shower is even more disturbing than Stewie's. It's this deeply psychological trauma, the idea of being stripped down, the overwhelming sensation of water. It's presented with this chilling seriousness that makes you question everything. Why is Brian so afraid of getting clean? Is this going to be a recurring thing? And the visual of him refusing to get in the shower with Stewie practically dragging him in is both funny and a little sad. This whole shower plotline is just weird. It's such a specific fear, and the way they're playing it out with Stewie meticulously planning the shower experience, complete with daffodil patterned safety decals, is peak Stewie.
He's planning a shower like it's a military operation. The U2 song mentioned, With or Without You, is a nice touch, playing on the idea that they can't afford it, but it's actually a Bon No. Get it? Bon Jovi. Anyway, the retirement community setting really becomes the main stage for the latter half of the episode. Peter is trying to liven things up, while Lois is just trying to survive. And the interactions with the elderly residents are a mixed bag. Some are sweet and welcoming, offering up Chico sticks and wisdom about pocket candy. Others are clearly looking to exploit the young couple, planning to harvest their organs. It's a classic Family Guy move, taking a seemingly innocent situation and twisting it into something dark and depraved. The humor here is in the absurdity of it all, the juxtaposition of these sweet old people with such sinister intentions. The Joe-mometer is a good gag, a little Bluetooth speaker spouting random trivia in Joe's voice. It's the kind of pointless gadget that Peter would love. And the comment about not actual milk is a subtle jab at how processed everything is these days. It's the little details that make Family Guy's world feel so lived in, even when it's completely insane. The episode also touches on the idea of feeling young and vibrant versus feeling old and decrepit. The elderly residents are constantly seeking interaction with Peter and Lois, seeing them as a source of energy and perhaps, as the organ harvesting plotline suggests, a source of sustenance. The interaction where Lois is asked to lift a fruitcake the weight of a grandson is a great visual gag, and the breakfast eye exam with the fake Dutch word glejib is another example of the show's relentless pursuit of random, often nonsensical humor. The idea of a retirement community as a place of both comfort and potential danger is explored effectively. It's a place where people are supposed to relax and enjoy their golden years, but it's also a place where they might be preyed upon by their peers. It's a commentary on the vulnerability of the elderly, and also perhaps a commentary on Peter's own immaturity, as he's the one who ends up inadvertently putting Lois in a dangerous situation. The twist of the retirement community turning into a place where the residents are planning to steal their organs is definitely a curveball. It escalates the stakes from a boring vacation to a fight for survival. It's the kind of shocking escalation that the show is known for. The dialogue about wanting body parts, calling dibs on udders and hooves, is darkly hilarious. And the reveal that it's a guy disguised as a cow just adds another layer of absurdity. The episode, in typical Family Guy fashion, throws a lot of different plot threads together. And while they don't always connect perfectly, the sheer volume of jokes and bizarre scenarios keeps it moving. It's a testament to the show's ability to constantly generate new and outlandish ideas, even if some of them land better than others. The ending, with Peter and Lois trying to escape the organ harvesters and Peter's Flintstone legs solution, is pure, unadulterated silliness. It's the kind of goofy, over-the-top action that makes you laugh despite yourself. And Brian and Stewie's shower ordeal continues, with Brian's phobia being the main focus.
The ending of the shower scene, with the tub filling up and becoming a bath, is a nice callback to Stewie's original fear. It's a satisfying conclusion to that particular subplot, even if it's a bit gross. The episode wraps up with Peter and Lois presumably escaping, and Stewie and Brian managing to survive their shower trauma. It's a typical Family Guy resolution. Chaos, a few life lessons learned, or not learned, and everyone goes back to their regularly scheduled programming. The humor is dark, the situations are bizarre, and the characters are as flawed as ever. It's another wild ride through the Griffins' dysfunctional lives, leaving you questioning your own sanity and the sanity of the writers. The episode really highlights the contrast between Peter's desire for excitement and Lois's need for stability. It's a constant push and pull in their relationship, and this episode leans heavily into that dynamic. Peter's impulsive actions always lead to trouble, and Lois is always the one who has to clean up the mess. It's a formula that's been working for the show for over 2 decades, and while it can get repetitive, there's still a certain charm to its predictability. The retirement community setting was a bold choice, and it allowed for some genuinely funny interactions with the elderly residents. The show managed to poke fun at aging without being overly mean-spirited, which is a delicate balance to strike. And the organ harvesting plotline, while extreme, was certainly memorable. It's the kind of shock humor that Family Guy excels at. The episode also works in a surprising amount of commentary on societal issues, like the healthcare system with the passport office scene, and the aging population.
It's not always subtle, but it's there. Ultimately, this episode is a solid example of what makes Family Guy work. A mix of absurd humor, relatable family dynamics, albeit extremely exaggerated, and a willingness to push boundaries. It's not a groundbreaking episode, but it's entertaining, and it certainly provides plenty of talking points for fans. The pacing is a bit all over the place, as is often the case with Family Guy, with some storylines feeling rushed and others dragged out. But the jokes are generally on point, and the character moments, though few and far between, do land. It's an episode that's more about the journey through the absurdity than a tightly plotted narrative, and that's perfectly fine for this show. It's the kind of episode that you watch, you laugh, you cringe, and then you immediately start thinking about what ridiculous thing Peter will do next week. It's the enduring appeal of the Griffin family. You can't help but watch them spiral. And that's exactly what this episode does. It sends them spiraling in a most spectacular fashion. It's a testament to the show's longevity that they can still come up with scenarios this wild after so many seasons. The combination of Peter's reckless abandon and Lois's exasperated pragmatism is the engine that drives most of the plots, and here it's fueled by a jetpack and a fear of showers. Truly a recipe for disaster, and a recipe for a pretty darn entertaining episode of Family Guy. It's got the laughs, the shock value, and just enough of a bizarre premise to keep you hooked. Okay, so let's dive into the actual moments that made this episode an episode. First up, the passport office scene. I mean, who's going through that process and getting told they're 7'6", weigh 180 pounds, and have colorectal cancer? That's not just bad news, that's like a trifecta of doom. The sheer nonchalance with which the clerk delivers this information is what makes it, because in the world of Family Guy, that's just another Tuesday. You go in for a passport, you might come out with a death sentence and a growth spurt. What's really happening here, beyond the obvious shock value, is the show poking fun at the impersonal nature of bureaucracy. You're just a number, a file, and sometimes those files get mixed up in the most horrifying ways. I would have made the clerk deliver the news with a little more dramatic flair, maybe a sad trombone sound effect, and instead of just accepting it, the person should have started arguing about their height.
Like, 7'6"? I'm barely 6 foot, and colorectal cancer? I thought I just had gas. It would have been a classic Peter-esque reaction. My personal reaction? Pure, unadulterated confusion followed by a morbid curiosity. Like, what kind of messed up algorithm is spitting that out? It's a great example of the show's ability to take a mundane situation and twist it into something utterly bizarre and memorable, even if it's just for the wrong reasons. Next, we have Stewie's absolutely bonkers shower flashback. This is the kind of scene that sticks with you, for better or worse. The visual of him as a baby, being stripped down, the overwhelming water, Peter getting in the shower with him to help, it's so intense. And the dramatic flute music? They really went for it. What this moment is really doing, beyond the immediate horror comedy, is establishing Stewie's deep-seated, almost primal fear of water and public hygiene.
It's so extreme, it makes you wonder if he's secretly afraid of being cleansed of his evil genius. It's presented with such theatricality that it almost feels like a genuine trauma, which is what makes it so funny and disturbing. If I were writing this, I would have made Peter's involvement even more absurd. Maybe he's wearing a full scuba suit, or he's trying to use a snorkel to communicate. The contrast between Stewie's terror and Peter's oblivious attempts to help would be amplified. My personal take? It's a perfect example of Family Guy's darkest humor, the kind that makes you laugh and then immediately question your life choices for finding it funny. It's a core Stewie trait, this irrational fear, and they've really leaned into it here. Then there's Peter's jetpack lawyer debut. The LA Law theme music, the leaf blowers taped to his back, the immediate crash into the house. It's everything you'd expect from Peter Griffin. He sees something cool, he wants to do it, consequences be damned. This scene is pure Peter. It's his ambition versus his complete lack of skill and common sense. The visual of him flying, or rather tumbling, through the air with a briefcase is just gold. It's a metaphor for his entire life, really. He's got the aspiration, but he lacks the execution. What the writers are saying here is that some people are just destined for chaos, and Peter is the king of that castle. He's not going to follow the rules. He's going to strap some power tools to himself and hope for the best. My rewrite? The crash would have been even more catastrophic. Maybe he lands in a public pool, causing a domino effect of people to fall in. Or he ends up accidentally joining a skywriting convention. Anything to prolong the absurdity. My reaction? Pure, unadulterated joy. It's the kind of dumb, over-the-top gag that this show excels at. The reveal of the retirement community as the vacation spot is another standout. Lois's face when she realizes where they are is priceless. It's the ultimate letdown, the opposite of a romantic getaway. And Peter's nonchalant attitude like, "What? It's got shuffleboard," is peak Peter. This moment is all about the clash between Peter's impulsive decision-making and Lois's desire for something normal and enjoyable. It's the embodiment of their relationship dynamic. What's being said here is that Peter's idea of a good time is often at Lois's expense, and she's just trying to make the best of a bad situation. If I were writing it, Peter would have tried to convince Lois that a retirement community was the height of luxury, listing off amenities like early bird specials and bingo tournaments as if they were five-star attractions. My personal feeling, it's relatable frustration. We've all been on trips that didn't quite live up to expectations, but this is Family Guy, so it's amplified by 1,000. The organ harvesting plot, oh boy, this is where Family Guy really goes off the rails, and it's fantastic. The sweet old ladies and gentlemen revealing their sinister intentions. The casual talk about body parts, it's the ultimate subversion of expectations. What this scene is doing is taking the often portrayed vulnerability of the elderly and twisting it into a terrifying yet darkly hilarious scenario. It's a commentary on how people can surprise you, and sometimes those surprises are downright sinister. It's also pure shock value, designed to make the audience gasp and laugh at the same time. If I were directing this, the reveal would have been even more gradual. Maybe one resident starts subtly asking about Peter's kidneys, then another asks about Lois's liver. It would build the tension before the full-on organized plan was revealed. My reaction? A mixture of, oh my God, they did not just go there, and genuine amusement. It's the kind of boundary-pushing humor that defines the show. Brian's fear of showers is another gem, or perhaps a shared trauma. His flashback is just as disturbing as Stewie's, painting showers as a place of existential dread. The imagery of him being stripped, the water overwhelming him, the implication of some deep psychological scar. It's so intense for a cartoon dog. This storyline is exploring the idea that even the most seemingly put-together characters can have hidden irrational fears. Brian, the intellectual one, is terrified of getting clean. It's ironic and sad. What I would have done differently? Maybe Brian's trauma involves a soap-related incident, where he was forced to watch a documentary about the dangers of water pollution, something that ties into his usual intellectual preoccupations. My reaction? Sympathy mixed with a touch of disbelief. It's so specific and so intense for a dog. Then we have the interactions with the elderly residents themselves. The man who says his sternum has only 14 sunspots, and the implied shock that no one else has less than 83. This is brilliant observational humor about aging and the specific things people focus on. It's also a bit of a dig at the idea that older people are obsessed with their health.
The woman asking if they've fasted for 12 hours for a massage is another good one, playing on the ridiculousness of some spa treatments. These moments are what make the retirement community setting feel lived in, even as it descends into madness. They're not just props, they're characters with their own quirks and concerns. What they're doing is showing us the mundane realities of aging, which makes the eventual organ harvesting plot even more jarring. If I were writing this, I'd have one of the residents constantly trying to sell Peter and Lois on life insurance policies that are incredibly expensive. My reaction? A chuckle at the relatable absurdity of the elderly's idiosyncrasies, quickly followed by a shudder as you remember their darker intentions. The Flintstone leg solution to escape the organ harvesters. This is just pure, unadulterated Family Guy silliness. Peter's logic, or lack thereof, is astounding. Running really fast with your legs extended like that is supposed to help? It's the kind of gag that relies entirely on its sheer ridiculousness. It's a visual punchline. What it's showing us is that Peter's solutions are never practical, but they are always memorable. He's not about to strategize. He's about to flail wildly and hope for the best. This is the peak of the chaotic energy of the episode. If I were writing this, the Flintstone legs would have actually worked in some bizarre physics-defying way, and they would have escaped due to sheer momentum. My reaction? A full-on belly laugh. It's the kind of dumb gag that the show perfected.
Finally, the ending of the shower scene. Stewie and Brian are still trapped, the shower turns into a bath, and Brian starts singing The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. This is a surprisingly poignant, yet still funny, way to end the shower ordeal. It's a callback to Stewie's original fear of baths, and a fittingly dramatic, albeit slightly misplaced, soundtrack for their shared trauma. What this moment is doing is tying up the shower storyline with a bow, acknowledging Brian's fear and Stewie's, well, his need to get clean. It's a moment of shared experience, even if that experience is deeply unpleasant. It's a good way to show their bond, enduring even through the most ridiculous and terrifying circumstances. My rewrite? Maybe they would have found a way to turn the shower into a jacuzzi, complete with tiny rubber ducks. It's always about adding more absurdity. My reaction? A sigh of relief that they finally got out of the shower, coupled with a laugh at Brian's dramatic musical choice. It's a fittingly weird end to a very weird plotline. Now, let's talk about the characters. First up, Peter. Honestly, he's the same Peter we know and, well, tolerate. In this episode, he's as impulsive and self-centered as ever. His jetpack lawyer fantasy is peak Peter. He sees something, he wants it, no thought to consequence. His decision to spend all their vacation money on a jetpack without asking Lois is a classic move that lands him squarely in the doghouse. His performance in the retirement community is also noteworthy. He's not content with a peaceful vacation, he has to turn it into an adventure, which, of course, leads to near death by organ harvesting. He's used well here, serving as the catalyst for most of the episode's chaos. Does this episode change how I see him? Not really. He's Peter. He's always going to be Peter. His role here reinforces that he's the engine of disaster, and that's his constant story arc. Lois, on the other hand, is the long-suffering wife who just wants a break. Her reactions to Peter's antics are what ground the episode in a semblance of reality. Her initial excitement for a couple's vacation, followed by her utter dismay at the retirement community, and then the organ harvesting plot, are all perfectly portrayed. She's used well here as the voice of reason and the victim of Peter's latest scheme. Her moments of exasperation are highlights. Does this episode change how I see her? No, but it solidifies her role as the perpetual problem solver and the emotional anchor of the family, constantly dealing with Peter's immaturity.
She's the one who has to navigate the mess. Stewie, bless his tiny evil heart. His phobia of showers is the central plotline for him, and it's brilliantly executed. His flashback is genuinely disturbing, and his meticulous planning for the shower is classic Stewie. He's so determined to overcome this fear, even if it means dragging a terrified Brian into it. He's used exceptionally well here, driving a significant portion of the narrative. Does this episode change how I see him? It deepens the understanding of his phobias, showing that even his most irrational fears have a bizarre, tragic backstory. It adds another layer to his already complex character. Brian, the perpetually anxious dog. His extreme phobia of showers is a major plot point, and it's played for maximum comedic and psychological effect. His flashback is just as disturbing as Stewie's, and his reluctance to get clean is a funny juxtaposition to Stewie's drive. He's used well here, acting as Stewie's reluctant accomplice and the other victim of a terrifying cleansing ritual. Does this episode change how I see him? It reveals a deeper, more irrational side to his personality, one that even he can't intellectualize away. It shows that beneath the suave exterior, there are real, albeit bizarre, anxieties. Chris, Bless his simple mind. He doesn't have a huge role in this episode, but his presence is felt. He's the one being measured for height and cancer at the passport office, which sets the tone for the absurdity. He's also the target of the organ harvesting joke. His function here is mostly to be a recipient of the episode's bizarre humor. He's used adequately, but not as a primary driver of the plot. Does this episode change how I see him? No, he remains the lovable, dim-witted Griffin child, often on the receiving end of the show's more outlandish jokes. Meg. Well, Meg is Meg. She's barely a presence, which is honestly par for the course. She gets a brief mention related to Peter's single loshing and a wrestling move. She's the perennial punching bag, and even when there are organ harvesters around, she's still seemingly overlooked, which is its own kind of dark joke. She's used sparingly, as usual. Does this episode change how I see her? Nope. Her role in the show is so consistent, this episode doesn't shift anything. She's just part of the background noise. Joe, bless his heart, is the friend who offers up his mom's condo. He's the supportive but slightly oblivious buddy. He provides the setting for the vacation gone wrong, and his mom's morbid retirement habits are a good callback to the show's darker humor.
He's used to facilitate the plot and provide some of the stranger details. Does this episode change how I see him? Not really. He's consistently the well-meaning but often incompetent friend. Now, let's dig into some of the things you might have missed. The opening song itself is a hidden gem of sorts. It's a direct parody of Put a Little Love in Your Heart, but instead of spreading love, it's about a family guy who does crazy things. It's a clever way to set the tone, immediately signaling that this isn't going to be your typical wholesome family show. It's a musical callback, a Trojan horse for the absurdity that's about to unfold. The show uses these musical intros to constantly comment on its own nature, and this one is particularly on the nose. It's a self-aware wink at the audience, acknowledging that they know Peter is anything but a typical role model. Then there's the Harold Goldfarb jetpack lawyer character. He's not just a random character. He represents Peter's unattainable aspirations. Every time Peter sees him, it's a reminder of Peter's own dissatisfaction and desire to be more, even if his definition of more involves strapping leaf blowers to his back. This is a recurring gag that's been used before, and its reappearance here signifies a return to Peter's core character motivations, chasing fleeting, ridiculous dreams. It's a callback that reinforces Peter's unchanging, albeit often destructive, personality. It's the kind of detail that shows the writers are thinking about Peter's long-term character arc, even if that arc is just a loop of bad decisions. The Chinese balloon, mistaken for a Japanese person. This is a prime example of Family Guy's brand of shock humor and casual racism. It's designed to be offensive, but also to comment on ignorance and prejudice. The show often uses these kinds of gags to push boundaries and get a reaction, forcing the audience to confront uncomfortable ideas, even if it's through a lens of extreme exaggeration. It's a callback to the show's history of edgy, sometimes problematic humor. The fact that the balloon turns out to be a person who corrects Peter's ignorance is a way to, very clumsily, offer a moment of learning and growth. It's a moment of meta-commentary, where the show itself is the ignorant one, and the character is trying to correct it. The Joe-mometer is another small detail that's easy to miss. It's a gag that plays on the idea of celebrity trivia and Joe's distinctive voice. It's a commentary on the modern obsession with trivia and the way technology is integrated into our lives. It's also just a funny, absurd product that fits perfectly within the Family Guy universe. It's the kind of throwaway gag that, if you're not paying attention, you might miss, but it adds to the overall comedic texture of the episode. It's a piece of product placement humor, but disguised as a character-specific item. It shows the show's commitment to injecting humor into even the most mundane aspects of the characters' lives. The recurring theme of old magazines, mentioning Seal and Heidi Klum's breakup and Whitney Houston's death, all from 2012, is a clever way for the show to comment on its own longevity and the passage of time. It's a meta-joke that acknowledges how long the show has been on the air and how much has changed in the world since then. It also provides a humorous way to set up Lois's irrational fear of bath deaths. It's a simple visual gag that packs a punch. It's the kind of detail that makes you appreciate the writing, the way they can weave in these subtle observations about the world and the show itself. It's a gentle reminder that while the characters might be stuck in their ways, the world around them and the show itself has moved on. And finally, the apple-biting old man. This is a moment that on its own might seem insignificant, but it's a perfect encapsulation of the episode's theme of aging and finding joy in the mundane. The sheer excitement from the residents that this man can still bite an apple with his own teeth is both hilarious and a little sad. It highlights how, for some, the simple act of maintaining basic bodily functions becomes a cause for celebration. It's a poignant, if slightly dark, commentary on the realities of aging and the diminished expectations that can come with it. It's a character moment for the background residents that adds depth and humor. It's the kind of thing that, if you're just watching for Peter's antics, you'll miss, but it's a crucial piece of the episode's tapestry. So what if they did it differently? Let's start with Peter's jetpack lawyer aspirations. Instead of just strapping leaf blowers to his back and crashing into the house, what if Peter actually tried to pass the bar exam with the help of his new jetpack? Imagine the training montages, Peter soaring through law textbooks, taking notes while doing aerial loops, perhaps even using the jetpack to intimidate opposing counsel during depositions. The comedy would come from Peter's complete misunderstanding of legal principles, constantly trying to apply jetpack logic to courtroom drama.
He could even have a rival jetpack lawyer, leading to aerial courtroom battles. That would have leaned into the absurdity of the premise even harder. My alternative would be to make the entire jetpack lawyer arc a full episode, not just a quick gag. Next, the organ harvesting plot. What if, instead of being malicious, the elderly residents were actually trying to help Peter and Lois, but their methods were just incredibly bizarre and dangerous? Perhaps they believed that Peter and Lois were suffering from some rare ailment, and their organ harvesting was actually a radical, misguided cure. They could be performing these procedures with knitting needles and expired medical equipment, believing they were saving them. This would play on the well-meaning but incompetent trope that some of the older characters exhibit. It would be less about outright evil and more about the terrifying consequences of extreme, misguided altruism. It would also be a way to keep Peter and Lois in a more passive role, letting the elderly residents drive the chaos. And finally, Stewie and Brian's shower trauma. Instead of it being a traumatic flashback, what if it was more of a shared, albeit disturbing, bonding experience? What if they were forced to take a shower together in a very strange, confined space, and through the ordeal, they developed a mutual understanding and respect for each other's anxieties? The trauma could be less about the water itself and more about the sheer awkwardness and discomfort of being forced into such an intimate situation with the other. They could emerge from the shower not just clean, but with a deeper, albeit weird, bond. This would elevate their relationship beyond just master and pet and into something more akin to dysfunctional siblings. It would be a more character-driven outcome for that plotline. All right, let's wrap this up. This episode of Family Guy, Season 22, Episode 4, gets a solid 7.4 out of 10. Why not a round number? Because while it has its moments of brilliance, like the organ harvesting reveal and Stewie's shower phobia, it also has those lulls where the jokes feel a little forced and the plot meanders more than Peter on his jetpack. The score is pulled up by its sheer audacity. The moments that land, they land hard and are incredibly memorable. The organ harvesting plot alone bumps it up a few points for pure shock value. What specifically earned those points? The creative, albeit disturbing, backstories for the phobias, the commitment to the absurd premise of a retirement community turning into a den of depravity, and Peter's unwavering commitment to his own ridiculous ideas.
What lost it points? The pacing is a bit uneven, as is often the case with Family Guy, with some storylines feeling underdeveloped while others drag on. The initial setup with the passport office and the news magazines felt a little disjointed from the main vacation plot, even if they served as a comedic primer. Who is this episode for? It's definitely for the die-hard Family Guy fans, the ones who appreciate the show's dark humor, its willingness to push boundaries, and its ability to find comedy in the most unexpected and often inappropriate places. If you're looking for a nuanced, character-driven story with a clear moral lesson, you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you want to laugh at flying lawyers, terrified dogs, and elderly people who want to steal your organs, then this episode is right up your alley. It's for viewers who embrace the show's signature brand.